done for me lately? It's Coons. What have y'all done for us lately? And if there's no answer, the only thing we owe them.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Let's Talk 2. Every Tuesday night, we have our sister Azima here. We always appreciate you guys in the chat for joining us with the conversation, because tonight the conversation may seem like it's going off of what we've been talking about with the history of fascism and understanding the Constitution and the laws. But in all actuality, what we do is we tie this to current events and different ideologies that people may have, beliefs and or thoughts. So we appreciate you guys in the chats. And we're going to have a good conversation. The last 12 days have been, for some people, have been interesting at best. For other people, it's politics as usual. For some other people, it's President Trump using too much of his authority, because in order to have an active warrior must come through Congress. So we'll have that discussion, and it's important for us to know and understand the history, or some brief history about what's going on over there, and taking the temperature of American people, because regardless of what we may think about our government, and Sister Azima and myself have been trying to explain, is that the Constitution, it was written by these people that people say are the forefathers. Some people say they were bad people. Be that as it may, it was written for the people to establish checks and balances with the elected officials and holding them accountable. This is why when you hear politicians talk about each other, they always say somebody's doing something against the Constitution, because really what they're doing is trying to rally the people against the particular elected official. Sister Azima, what's going on?
Good evening, everybody. Glad to see you again. And I'm going to parrot what Brother Quentin says. Yes, this has everything to do with, we were talking about the laws. Remember, there's natural law, divine law, there's the law of peace, and then there's constitutional law. And my question to you is that, do you think he's violating the constitutional law when he did what he did? Now, I want you to remember some things that I asked you to do, which was look at Agenda 21. And I also asked you all to look up New World Order and what their program was. Eugenics, all of this kind of thing, population reduction. And so this is just my opinion. When you look at what's going on between Israel and Iran, and I want you to go through the Bible and trace the lineage of both of them. Who followed Ishmael, who followed Abraham, who followed whatever. And this is just my opinion. I feel that It's kind of like the feud between the Hatfields and the McCoys. And I look at this as kind of a family feud of two groups of people that are following particular people that came out of the Bible, but based on their rules and how they're implementing these religious tenets and rules. And so remember now, Bibi fired the first shot into Iran, and he told everybody that it was preemptive because they were collecting nuclear. They were going to have enough plutonium and stuff to create nuclear weapons. Now, some of you are younger than me, some of you are my age, but they've been collecting that since 1998. They don't have it yet. The other thing is that when Zelensky came and Trump, you would see Trump with Zelensky, but you were never in the White House when he would talk with him in the Oval Office. The press was never there. And then he did invite the press. And I think at that time, Zelensky was frustrated because he had been here so many times and Trump never promised him weapons of mass destruction to go to war with Russia. Bibi came under the same premise. Now, remember, these guys have been fueled by United States AID. Trump shut that down. And then they were also getting all other fundings through a lot of what we call pork. If you don't know what pork is, when congressional members have a bill they want to pass, they put these riders on a major bill. So if you know you want to pass Social Security, you're going to add, I'm going to add my extra bill. Quentin's going to add his bill. You out there are going to add your bill. And most of it is fluff. Honestly, most of it is fluff.
Because 99% of people don't read the whole bill.
Right. And so then they just pass it. And the next thing you know, you're in debt. Inflation's up. Wages are static. And you can't understand what's going on. Right now, I can say, as a retired individual, I feel some relief. It's not as much as I want, but some relief. Gas for me right now is anywhere from $2.50 to $2.80 in Missouri. Eggs here are $2.50 to $3 instead of $5 to $8. So I feel some of the relief. Okay, fuel has come down. So what I'm saying is that when Bibi came to the United States and met with President Trump, Trump told him, we support you, but we don't want to go to war. Because the American population doesn't want to go to war. So what did he do? Trump sent Tulsi Gabbard. Remember, she's over munitions and things like that. She took representatives from the, I don't know the exact word, but I know it's IED, and it deals with looking at the gaining or storing up of nuclear materials in order to make nuclear weapons. She came back and told President Trump that they were at 60.3, however they measure that, I'm going to say percentage of having what they need, which meant that they were in the exact range they should be for nuclear energy to allow them to run their country. America has nuclear energy. Okay. We have power plants, but we still burn coal to fire up some of these power plants to give you electricity. So she went in March of 2025. She went back again, I want to say, the end of April, around the first week of May, and with the same people from the Regulatory Commission, and they gave Trump the exact same report. They're only at 60.3, Maybe it went up to 62.3%, but it's enough to allow them to power their country. If you don't know anything about the Project 21, which is reduction of the population, to be able to control the climate, um, you have to really read it. It's very in depth, and it'll make you go, it'll give you pause. Okay, how can these 100 families make all these decisions? And it was labeled under New World Order. It may be new to you that you're hearing it out of my mouth, but President Clinton, when he gave his speech, spoke on the New World Order. The Bushes spoke on the New World Order, both Daddy Bush and his son. Obama spoke on the New World Order. Trump never spoke about it, either in his first 4 years or in this set of 4 years. So we've always heard him say he wants peace. So if Zelensky couldn't drive him to take action, him being Trump representing the United States of America, then I'm sure the military industrial complex was looking at it in the manner that we need to have some type of long-term military engagement, because that's how they make their money. Remember, these families they vote on both sides. They play both sides against the middle. So if Zelensky didn't have what it would take to force America to be in the Ukrainian war against Russia, then they were banking on Netanyahu. Now remember, Trump went to NATO and said, if America has to pay, why do we have to pay for France and Germany and Israel? Why are we paying their membership? Remember, he bounced all that back. Remember, the United States was paying for everybody. You know, you got that wealthy cousin, everybody go out to eat during a particular holiday, and you strap in with that $1,200 bill and walk away. Well, Trump, like that cousin, said, enough is enough. We're not doing this. And so, you know, it puts pressure on everybody else to meet their obligations. And then Trump is also asking those countries to pay us back for all the times. He's basically saying, if you thought with the prior presidents it was a freebie, no, with me it's a loan. So you have all of that on the table, and war is not becoming imminent, because by this time he's almost 6 months in. Many presidents would be in some type of situation, Desert Storm, Afghanistan with the Taliban, Iran, Iraq, Vietnam, Korean War, okay, just all kinds of military offensives overseas. Trump is like, let's be in a place of peace. It doesn't mean that we're weak. It just merely means I don't have to get up every day and send all of my people out there to be killed. So my opinion, Netanyahu was told that Trump supports the Jewish people and Israel. Step up the game. So he fired on Iran. Trump did not send planes for 2 weeks. Think about that, everybody. He didn't send anybody out there for 2 weeks. 2. Maybe a little longer. Almost not quite 3 weeks, but maybe 2.5 weeks, maybe 17 days later, he took action. And when he took action, one of his strategic air commands is in my state. So they scrambled, headed to the East Coast. And Iran was forewarned that they were coming. I've never known any president to let you know, I'm getting ready to bomb you. And they were forewarned. The area in which he bombed, those facilities, I think One of them came online in, I want to say 2007 or 2009, and the other ones came on in the 20, 20 teens. I'm not sure when. And then the last one came online, I think around 2017 or 2018. It was 3 legs. And Trump told you, he said, we bombed them, we messed it up, took them out, okay? And everybody was paused to go to war. Remember now, these ruling families, 100 of them, this is how they make their money. They have investments in pharmaceutical companies and investments in the penal system. And then they have investments in hospitals and clinics. Okay. Then they have investments in educational systems, but they also support um, fascism, Marxism, okay, communism. Um, Everybody says that George Soros owned BLM, Black Lives Matter. He did not. It was absolutely organic. I know because it sprung up from us here in Missouri. Those women were paid by George Soros to create a letterhead and all this kind of stuff. So what we're seeing is that Trump is really trying to follow the Constitution. And in the Constitution, he does not believe, and the people don't believe in war. And one thing you need to know, Congress has to declare war, not the president, not not Hegseth, not Pam Bondi, not anybody in his cabinet. It has to be done by Congress, and they
So
have
let
to
me
have
let me let
overwhelming
me
telling.
let me back you up for a second, Sister Azima, if you don't mind, because I saw some comments in the chat, and I want to have this conversation, and I don't want us to go too fast, but go too slow. I want us to really take our time, because Sister Azima brought up something, and this was Tulsi Gabbard in March.
Iran continues to seek expansion of its influence in the Middle East, despite the degradation to its proxies and defenses during the Gaza conflict. Iran has developed and maintains ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, and UAVs, including systems capable of striking U.S. targets and allies in the region. Tehran has shown a willingness to use these weapons, including during a 2020 attack on U.S. forces in Iraq and in attacks against Israel in April and October 2024. Iran's cyber operations and capabilities also present a serious threat to U.S. networks and data. The IC continues to assess that Iran is not building a nuclear weapon, and Supreme Leader Khamenei has not authorized the nuclear weapons program that he suspended in 2003. The IC continues to monitor closely if Tehran decides to reauthorize its nuclear weapons program. In the past year, we've seen an erosion of a decades-long taboo in Iran on discussing nuclear weapons in public, likely emboldening nuclear weapons advocates within Iran's decision-making apparatus. Iran's enriched uranium stockpile is at its highest levels and is unprecedented for a state without nuclear weapons. Iran will likely continue efforts to counter Israel and press for U.S. military withdrawal from the region by aiding, arming, and helping to reconstitute its loose consortium of like-minded terrorists and militant actors, which it refers to as its axis of resistance. Although weakened, this collection of actors still presents a wide range of threats, including to Israel's population, U.S. forces deployed in Iraq and Syria, and to U.S. and international military and commercial shipping and transit.
I just want to preface this by saying that mainstream media, what they tried to do is they tried to twist some of her words and say what she was saying was going against the president. And prior to his authorizing the bombing of nothing. And the reason why I say nothing, because I'm quite sure everybody's up to speed in the chat of the 3 areas, like Sister Azima said, they bombed, what they destroyed and what they didn't destroy. That later on that night, Pete Hegseth, Secretary of Defense, said that no troops. None of their troops were a target. No civilians were a target. Just these particular 3 spots.
Mm-hmm.
And it's important for us to understand. I know that Colt, you put in there that the Rothschilds are part of the power elite. Absolutely, this has a lot to do with that as well.
Mm-hmm.
And understanding that Iran is one of the only countries, so I think it's 3, that do not have a central bank. And understanding who runs the central bank, Federal Reserve, and understanding what goes on, like far as like outwardly politics, outwardly aggression, and how strategically and what Israel wants to do. We have to understand that Israel is 3 entities: Israel, Zionist, and Jews. They're not the same,
Mm-mm.
but it's 3 different entities. So it's very important that we understand that this is not a Jewish thing in some aspects. It is more of about what the greater Israel wants to do with and expand it, the expansion of Israel and their borders and the Zionist ideology. So you had a question here, Sister Azima. The brother said you had mentioned that the fighting is in Southwest Asia, Middle East. The Hebrews and News in the Bible are not the parasite predator Ashkenazi and Khazars and Zionists. They are running Israel. What she's saying is giving us some history of knowing from the religious aspect of the descendants of Ishmael, which is particularly Arab, and the descendants of Ishaq, which is particularly the Jewish or Christian aspect.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Sister Azim.
Well,
I mean, that's what I know about what
right,
you said in reference to the religious text. I know
right.
that I'm not a Hebrew, so
Mm-hmm.
I know that some of the Hebrews say that these people are Khazarians. I know that's not the preface of the conversation per se,
Mm-hmm.
but I know we want to talk about have some understanding of who these people are. I've done that countless times on different platforms on my channel. But to give us some context to what just happened the last few weeks and understanding what President Trump, like you were saying, when he authorized the bombing of these 3 facilities. Go ahead, Sister Azima.
Okay, so here's something else you need to know. Israel didn't exist until 1948, after World War II, when many of the Jewish people from Germany and those areas, Poland, places like that, they fled to America, and America said, we can't hold them. And so, where did they go? They went to Asia, took land from people, and created the nation of Israel. 1948. And they've been fighting ever since. So you have to go in and remember, I always tell you, go and research it, learn what they're fighting about. When you get in there and start looking at it, you'll be like, oh my goodness. Like Brother Quentin said, one leg is practices this religious tenet, another leg practices that, and then the third leg practices Christianity. And all my life, all I've ever heard was Islamic Judeo-Christian, Islamic Judeo-Christian. And I was like, why would you lump those 3 together? Aren't they different? When you go through the Bible and start breaking the family lines down and seeing where they went, how they migrated, all the stuff that goes on with it, you shake your head like, wow. And that's why I always gave that scenario, the Hatfields and McCoys.
So, Sister Azima,
Mm-hmm.
the last few days, let's just say the last 36 hours, we saw where President Trump said a ceasefire was announced. Soon as he said that a ceasefire was announced, Israel proceeded to a ceasefire was announced for a specific time, 5 hours down the road. And when that was announced by President Trump, a bombardment of missiles were let loose Israel towards Iran. Um,
Okay, so did you see?
and
Then you missed the part where Trump spoke. I hate to cut you off, but this will put some perspective on it. Trump spoke, and then after he spoke, the prime minister from Iran spoke, and he said that he reiterated. He said we were notified that the bombers were coming. We have no beef with America. That's my words. But he said we're not going to attack America. But he said we are going to bomb everything out of Israel. And that's before Trump said we're going to do a ceasefire. So he
and
already
that was
made
even prior to Trump destroying those alleged 3 facilities.
Mm-hmm.
Iran was kicking Israel's ass. I don't think a lot of people understand what Iran was doing. They were, according to independent news, they were strategically picking off certain aspects of Israel. This is why Israel, you cannot go in Israel and you cannot come out of Israel. You cannot leave the country. It's basically a war-torn country, basically what they did with Gaza and now with what Iran is doing. And they basically cannot survive, in my opinion, without America helping.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But they do have nuclear weapons as well. So this is up until what you said about
Mm-hmm.
the prime minister of
Mm-hmm.
Iran did say that, and he said it's nothing to do with America, but we will defend ourselves against Israel aggression.
And
And
also
our
okay, I'm sorry.
and our ceasefire is contingent on Israel not firing any more weapons, any more missiles at us.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Sister Azima.
Here's something else you need to know. Like Brother Quentin says, Israel does have nuclear capability. They are not a member of the International Agency on Petroleum Control or anything like that, nuclear weapons control. They create this ambiguity about how much nuclear power they have. America has always supported that. Everything was ambiguous, just the ambiguity about everything that dealt with Israel. Trump was like, no, we don't have the money. We can't continue. The people don't want to continue. So unless you all have, for me, I had uncles in World War II. They survived. I had cousins in the Korean War and the Vietnam War. They were never the same when they came back to America. They took their life. I had my first husband in the Vietnam War. My second husband was from the Vietnam War. It really skews their perspective. Remember now, you're going over there at age 18. You're a kid and you're taught to kill anything that moves, and you're scared and you're going to shoot anything that moves. I'm not interested. But World War II, Korean War, Vietnam, okay? And then I had second and third generation cousins fighting in Afghanistan with the Taliban, Iraq. I do believe in protecting America. I stand for that. But I think I've had enough war. I've had 8 separate wars in which personally I had family members in, and they weren't the same when they came back. And a lot of you have never been around that. I
So,
mean, just anything would trigger them.
so last night there was a bunch of different reports saying it wasn't a ceasefire, saying it was a ceasefire. Israel kept letting off missiles, and then Trump said it was a ceasefire. Even CNN finally had to announce that yes, a ceasefire agreement was reached. And I want to ask everybody in the chat a question. What is your opinion about everything that's going on? Do you guys think this is justified? Do you think that that uh, we don't need to get into the war? We don't need to get involved. We need to mind our business. Um, since Azima, we had a conversation, and I said something, and then you were about to go into explanation of what I said because I think you agreed.
Mm-hmm.
And I said I think that Trump, and I know a lot of times people may feel like we're always in agreement with everything that Trump does, and that's not true.
Mm-mm.
But this is the one time that I can honestly say I think Trump finally played Netanyahu. He's
Yeah,
the
I
only
would agree
president
with
that played him. I think he exposed
that. Mm-hmm.
Netanyahu for a bloodthirsty
Mm-hmm.
dictator
Mm-hmm.
who is hell bent on power,
Mm-hmm.
hell bent on helping getting the United States to help him with his agenda,
Mm-hmm.
and hell bent on by any means necessary expanding the borders of Israel.
Mm-hmm.
I think Trump played him, and I think he played him well because he exposed him for what he was. That all he wants to do is fight Iran, and it has nothing to do with nuclear weapons.
Mm-hmm.
That's their excuse. And I think the American people are fed up with Israel and their bullshit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I agree. I concur.
Frederick said, I think Israel is running American leadership. Well, is they? I mean, I was under the same impression, Fred. But this is a different, and I'm not saying that Trump is super smart, but this Trump made a major move with this. I know a lot of us thought I did a show. A lot of us thought that this was the beginning of something bigger, but in reality, it exposed Netanyahu because even after the alleged ceasefire agreement, Netanyahu still shot missiles over. And then this morning, before the president went to the NATO summit, this is what he said.
Iran violated the peace agreement and the ceasefire agreement. Do you believe that Iran is still committed to peace?
Yeah, I do. They violated it, but Israel violated it too.
Are you questioning if Israel is committed?
Israel, as soon as we made the deal, they came out and they dropped a load of bombs, the likes of which I'd never seen before. The biggest load that we've seen. I'm not happy with Israel. You know, when I say, okay, now you have 12 hours, you don't go out in the first hour and just drop everything you have on them. So I'm not happy with them. I'm not happy with Iran either. But I'm really unhappy if Israel's going out this morning because the one rocket that didn't land, that was shot, perhaps by mistake, that didn't land. I'm not happy about that. You know what? We basically have two countries that have been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the fuck they're doing. Do you understand that?
Thank you. I agree. I agree.
Wow.
I agree.
Wow.
I agree. It's like the Hatfields, and please go back and read the story on the Hatfield McCoys. They started out good friends, then they married, and then they killed each other the same way we're seeing this here. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. And I do agree. They have been fighting so long that they have no idea what they're fighting about or fighting for.
Sister Azima, he has went down as the first president who we got recorded. I don't think a lot of people understand it. Recorded, not alleged, He's the first sitting American president recorded to curse during a press like this.
Yes.
My opinion is that you finally listen, and I'm not taking anybody's side in this, trust me, but you finally see where a president who is being objective,
Mm-hmm.
who, in my opinion, doesn't in his belief does not have a dog in the fight,
Mm-mm.
who realized the frustration with trying to mediate people that don't know, that don't really want it to be mediated, that really are hell bent on trying to destroy each other.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see it definitely from Netanyahu. Like the brother Coach said, that Netanyahu is just like Ariel Sharon. These guys was in power in Israel so long that this has been their mocking. I mean, countless media people on both sides, Don Lemon, Megyn Kelly, Tucker Carlson, everybody have basically did a 30-year video montage of Netanyahu saying Iran is 6 months away from nuclear capabilities. Iran is this, Iran is that. And we've been hearing this for the last 30 years. And me personally, I think the American people are tired. I don't think the American people bleed. Like, enough's enough.
Mm-hmm.
We're tired of paying for wars. We're tired of our kids dying in these wars. If you have a problem, you deal with it on your own. It's like the little brother who goes out there and starts trouble, but needs the big brother to come and help him.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, FedEx says, let's cut all foreign aid to Israel or Bibi steps down as PM. That's a great solution. One of the solutions that I definitely think that is important is also is not allow any American congressman or congresswomen have dual citizenship. You can Google that and see how many people in our government have dual citizenship to Israel, as well as any other foreign country. Because it really it contradicts your allegiance. Black Lion said he's being pressured not only by through these countries but also his Jewish donors. You mean Jewish donors or Zionist donors? It's important that we understand the difference. There's three entities when you're talking about that area: Israel, the Zionists, and the Jewish.
Okay, so let's say this. That land was already occupied
By the
by
Palestinians.
hmm by the Palestinians and the Arab population. That land was known as Canaan. The Ottoman Empire had been all up in there. Okay, this was supposed to be the promised land in the Bible. Remember, Jew, your Jesus was a Palestinian according to the historical records. So before the Jewish people got there, the land was already owned and occupied. When did they arrive? It was May of 1948.
Sister Azima, let me ask you right now. I know the answer to this, but for the sake of conversation, the land was occupied by the Palestinian people.
Mm-hmm.
The Palestinian people could be Jewish, they could be Christian, or they could be Muslim. The ethnicity was Palestinian. They brought these Khazarians who happened to say they were Jewish and placed them in that land and then made the state of Israel.
Okay, and that was done by a gentleman by the name of David Ben Gurion. He was head of the Jewish Agency. He proclaimed the establishment of the State of Israel with the help of the United States President Harry S. Truman. This is the same person who knew about the bombing before the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor. But the military industrial complex, he made an allegiance with them then. And they said, let the war go and you'll make money for America. America didn't make money. Just those people who had deep pockets and the ruling families. So after they destroyed Germany with the help of America, United States of America, in violation of the Constitution. They came with the Wars Act, and when they introduced that, Congress voted on it, and we went to war. Near the end of the war, and we did the things that we did, and those people fled, and they needed a place to go. They came to America first, and Harry Truman said, no, 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 no. And so this man, David Ben Gurion, went to the land of Canaan that we call Palestine, and declared that land. That's the same thing with the colonization that came to the United States, that came to America, because it wasn't the United States. And they found the country already occupied and declared it colony for the Queen. How? How? So now remember, Jesus was a black man. It clearly states that woolly hair. He looked like a Nubian or an Ethiopian. So if he was declared or identified as a Palestinian, and he married an Ethiopian-looking woman, because he did have a
Azima froze. If she drops you guys, y'all know the routine. She'll be back. I'll read your statement, Gene. America needs to concentrate on making America a better place. You back, Sister Azima?
So the
Okay,
bottom
you there.
line is that I always encourage you to do your research. It's imperative. It's imperative. Here's a president trying to function under a law that was created by the people. They had to make treaties with the indigenous population here, and then those treaties and those nations came together. And when they came together, they created what we call the Articles of Confederation and then the Constitution, because the indigenous people here in America had confederations, and so they put all that together, and we ended up with this law, this constitutional law that has been violated consistently since it came into existence. And now we have a president who's saying, let's go by the law. We have a law. Let's truly interpret and use the law to benefit the American people. Because you see, we were drug into every war. The Gulf of Tonkin was a joke. It really didn't happen the way they said it, and they drug us into a war. Same thing with Korea. All the bad folks we had to go and fight for, all in those Arab countries. Do you know how that makes us look? We
So
look like
let me ask you, Sister Azima. I know a lot of people, and we could talk about colonization and stuff like that, and understanding the what we've done as a country prior to now. Because I'll be honest with you, um, this could have potentially, and it may still be potentially, the beginning of this generation's Vietnam.
Mm.
When you look at so many Americans today are just like, enough's enough. We don't want no part of this. We don't want to be involved. Does that surprise you, Sister Azim?
Mm-mm, 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 mm-mm. And I'm speaking from the fact that I've been married twice, had two husbands. One would just sit straight up in the bed and start carving things out of my pillow. No. Okay. to see the anxiety on them. Cars backfire, they're ready. They're on high alert. They never get a chance to wind down. Never. For those that don't drink, they get on drugs. They're trying to bury all of that, their nightmares. And see, it's very easy for me or any of these people, even Netanyahu, the Ayatollah Khomeini, they're at the head. They are trying to insulate themselves from that, give orders, and then everybody else follows the orders. How would you feel if you were in college and you were able to do 1 year or one semester and then they draft you? See, they want to reinstitute the draft and they will draft you. You're 19 years old. You ain't never been out of Brooklyn, New York. And you're in a foreign country with a gun in your hand, shooting at people. You're getting blown up. You're being shot at. It changes the scope of a person. The world has glorified war. And I think sometimes we need to glorify being tolerant and peaceful. It doesn't mean a peaceful person is never a weak person. Don't ever take that, and don't ever let anybody tell you that. Because they can be the most dangerous person in a room. So just because you're peaceful doesn't mean you're weak. But it also means that you don't have to always be the bully, picking on everybody everywhere you go.
It's funny you said that.
And my question to you all, I'm going to be like that, his opening statement, what has Israel done for us lately?
I agree. Well, let me just say this, preface by this, right? I'm surprised that you're not. You're our elder. I'm surprised that so many American people are against this. And the reason why I say that is because American people, for some reason, that reality sometimes does not hit home. With in wars, people die. In wars, you may see, like I always say, until you see the army vehicle pull up at your neighbor's house, 2-3 houses down the house from you, doing the victim notification, you kind of don't realize the impact. Having the flag delivered to you, and understanding that you basically on deck. It could be your house next. I'm surprised that my generation is not as eager, because sometimes we're very bloodthirsty. We're very believing everything that mainstream media, and I'll say that independent media. This shows to me the popularity of independent media, but really, really hitting home, because usually legacy media, with their narrative, know how to program people into thinking one thing and then not thinking on their own. So I am shocked that more people don't want to get involved in this conflict, and it's a good thing. I don't unless you got people, when you have people involved with this stuff, you don't want the conflict. Nobody wants the conflict. And when you say, what has Israel done for us? I honestly think, with the pushback, and I've never seen this in my lifetime, that I think that with having so many Americans against what's going on, that Americans are asking that question finally.
Mm-hmm.
What's up with Israel? Some of us been in the know, and we've seen it all our lives, where Israel basically been using the United States as their big brother bullies. And it's like, now people are starting to realize, like, hold up, Israel has been giving us bad intelligence went into Iraq because of Israel, allegedly.
Mhm.
And they've been behind us doing stuff in Yemen, doing stuff all over the globe, over in that particular region. All of it came from basically bad intelligence
Mhm.
from Israel.
Mhm.
So I am, like I said, I'm a little shocked, and I'm glad that people are starting to question our relationship with Israel because we should question it.
Mhm.
Go ahead, Sister Azima.
No, I'm just, I agree. We should. We've
I'm
had.
gonna ask you a question. I'm gonna ask you a question as an elder, right?
Mhm.
Have you ever in your lifetime seen a more toxic relationship with two countries when it comes to the United States and Israel?
It's more toxic now than it's ever been. Okay. America has always. Remember now, America under Harry S. Truman, they went there and took the land. And Ben Ben Gorin, David Ben Gorin, put those people there. He put roughly 1,000 people there. So America has always been the daddy to protect Israel, but they've always been the type of they've always had a very predatory approach to everyone around them, everybody around them. They would throw the rock and hide their hand, and they could hide behind America. Okay, so it makes me relive the end result of being around people that came home behind the war. My oldest brother, was involved in the Korean War. My uncles in World War II. And when I sit here and think about that, how they would come home and America would still spit on us and treat us terrible after we gave our lives to protect someone else. And I guess right now we've come to a place where enough is enough. We support what you do, but it doesn't mean I have to send young men and women over there. Do we? Do we really have to do that?
One of the
And the
things,
words that would come out of Netanyahu's mouth about the black Hebrew Israelites. Mm-mm, mm-mm.
one of the things that and bring it up because Brother Coach just posted it was, you know, my mother was a little girl in school. She always told me the story. Always told us the story. Was a little girl in school when President Kennedy got killed, and she explained to me at a very young age. I'm telling you guys in the chat because Sister Azima remembers when President Kennedy got killed as
Mhm,
well.
mhm,
Um, she explained to me how, in spite of some of the Kennedy stuff, it was a very sad moment. We
mhm,
know that President Kennedy literally said out his own mouth, he wanted to disband the CIA
mhm,
and dismantle them in pieces. And
mhm,
he also gave a lot of pushback on Israel.
mhm,
I say that to say that even though that we know how President Kennedy was killed, that he was killed in an open motorcade. And a
mhm,
lot of times things happen not only to hurt that individual, but it's also to send a message to others.
mhm,
And it's been a lot of conversation about the redacted files of the Warren Commission, which was supposed to have came out in 2000.
Mhm.
It came out during President Trump's first presidency,
Mhm.
and there's still some files that is not made public.
Mhm.
President Trump said, you wouldn't want to see it. He told Bobby Kennedy if he gets elected, he will see it. So Bobby Kennedy knows about those files, knows about
Mhm.
the files of Martin Luther King Jr., knows about the files of his father.
Mhm.
With that, Sister Azima,
Mhm.
do you think that, because we all know that President Kennedy left an impression even on President Trump? He talks about how he he models himself after Lincoln and Kennedy, which is interesting. Do you think that this pushback where we see towards Netanyahu is not just towards Netanyahu, or is towards Israel altogether?
You know, the third thing Kennedy wanted to do was remove the International Monetary Fund and the Federal Reserve Bank because he said it was controlled by the Jewish population. And he didn't feel it was fair because we already had a treasury system. I think what we're seeing is that we've had a system in place where the person has always called fire fire, but he turned out to be a liar. And they're not only tired of him because he went in 79 and then he went back in. So he's been in place for 17 years.
And prior to October 7th, 2023, we know what happened.
Hmm.
He was literally about to be voted out.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
that once that happened,
Hmm.
the October 7th, 2023, we all know what happened.
Hmm.
Basically, he got his popularity. War makes him more powerful.
Hmm.
For some strange reason, even his own people don't want him there as their
They're
leader.
tired of him. Everybody's tired of him. Okay. Because everything has to be flown into them. They have no relationship with any country around them at all. So I think what's happening is that the people are looking at leadership closely, and then they're looking at those within those leadership positions and cabinets and parliaments that are warmongers and thinking you need to stop. We are also encouraging the people who live there to stand up for their own rights. Why do we have to go over there and stand up for you? Okay. So now I'm gonna speak as a black person right now, in my own opinion, but what I've seen. We introduced Pan Africanism. We introduced breakfasts and lunches and things like that in the educational system. Things like that didn't exist. A lot of stuff that you see in terms of social development was introduced by us. Okay. The Me Too movement was by us and indigenous um, Indian women who were often raped, mutilated, killed. Nobody gave care. Okay. So, what we are saying, or what I'm saying, is that how many times do I have to come and rescue you? If I give you the tools, when do you all stand up against the people you don't want in office? We've always had to do that here. Everything we've got, we had to fight for. Let's just be realistic. So you're in that country. If you do not like your leaders, do whatever is necessary to get rid of them to change your system. Why do we have to kill off our young men, our young ladies, to assist you, and then you still spit in our face. So I think Trump is looking at that realistically too, in the respect that America has always gone over there and done for you. But when we ask something back, you spit in our face. We don't how I often feel like Netanyahu feels like we owe him something. I don't see, you know, America wasn't over there putting your people in gas chambers, and I'm not trying to be funny or being disrespectful, but it wasn't us. I don't see them demanding anything from the German people for what has happened, but not all the German people were that way. So, why are you doing this? Doesn't make sense to me, but I do know that it allows the warmongers to stay in power. I know that it continues to help the New World Order people and the military industrial complex, for which Truman truly said he was sorry that he signed an agreement with them or had a pact with them, to the point that he knew it will take a long time for us to push them out, maybe 100 years. So,
And make no mistake, they are the only branch. Well, they are. I won't even say they're a branch of government, the military-industrial complex, but they are the only entity, for lack of better words, who basically have a blank check.
yes, a blank check for whatever they want to do, however they want to do it, spend it whenever they want to. And they were getting their blank check through USAID.
Let me answer this question real quick.
Mm-hmm.
So he said, Brother Q, if Israel is the antagonist repeatedly, why is Trump justified in taking out Iran's nuclear reactors, especially after the data showed Iran's capability was only generating power? That's a good question. And I'm going to answer your question by saying, did he really take out some sites? I want you to do a little research, not being funny. He didn't do anything. It as of right now, if you want to sit back and be objective, it was a 52 fake out. Those three air raids that they did was a 52 fake out. Even the bunker, oh, we dropped bunker busters on it. It did not phase it. And that's according to right before we went live, CNN did video imaging of the area. They didn't get underground.
Mm-mm.
So it really, the reality was, in my opinion, based off of what I've been seeing, it was much to do about nothing. Plus, Iran was warned. They
Yeah.
gave them ahead of time what they were going to bomb. So this really was all about exposing you're mediating you're mediating your two little cousins fighting.
Mm-hmm.
You say, yo, he got the best of you, he put blood in your mouth.
Mm-hmm.
Well, y'all fight again. And when the other one make your nose bleed, that's when you break it up.
Mm-hmm.
Not using that scenario may not be according to this, but
Mm-hmm.
when you really look at what Trump did and people got upset, and rightfully so, because people don't want war, right?
Mm-hmm.
Except the warmongers, the bloodthirsty people.
Mm-hmm.
When you really sit back and think about what Trump did the last 4 days, he exposed Netanyahu for what he really was, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Netanyahu is dead set on
Mm-hmm.
growing the borders of Israel. If you ever Google the Greater Israel, Dr. Short told me this 3 years ago, and I
Mm-hmm.
never knew it until he asked me to Google it. The
Mm-hmm.
Greater Israel, this is the expansion of Israel's borders. Up until 1947, it was small,
Mm-hmm.
really small when they gave them that piece of land. And it has been growing, Golan Heights,
Mm-hmm.
growing, the beach front, growing.
Mm-hmm.
All the way to they have a map called the Greater Israel. If you look at the Israel troops, the Israeli troops, they have a patch on their arm. If you ever look at the patch,
Mm-hmm.
it's the map of what they are trying to accomplish with the Greater Israel from that patch.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the present Israel because their objective is to have all that piece of land. part of Egypt, part of Saudi Arabia, most of Iraq and Iran.
Mhm.
So that's just my opinion. I do believe that Trump pulled a fast one, and he showed it today with what he said. And I'm gonna play it again for you guys in the chat.
That Iran violated the peace agreement and the ceasefire agreement. Do you believe that Iran is still committed to peace?
Yeah, I do. They violated it, but Israel violated it too.
Are you questioning if Israel is committed to
Israel, as soon as we made the deal, they came out and they dropped a load of bombs, the likes of which I've never seen before. The biggest load that we've seen. I'm not happy with Israel. You know, when I say, okay, now you have 12 hours, you don't go out in the first hour and just drop everything you have on them. So I'm not happy with them. I'm not happy with Iran either. But I'm really unhappy if Israel's going out this morning because of one rocket that didn't land, that was shot, perhaps by mistake, that didn't land. I'm not happy about that. You know what? We basically have two countries that have been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the fuck they're doing. Do you understand that?
Now, I'm gonna ask you guys a question. Have you ever heard a sitting president publicly saying that they were not happy with Israel? Forget what the reason is for. Have you ever heard a sitting president say they were not happy with Israel? We have presidents that have came before us that literally, when they say that they want a two-state area, they come under the microscope for saying that. A state for Palestine and a state for Israel. When certain presidents said that, they've came under scrutiny. So I know for a fact, not in our lifetime, we have never heard a sitting president ever say they were disappointed with Israel. And I am not caping for Trump. We have never heard a sitting president say that they were disappointed with Israel. I think he's allowing Benjamin to expose himself for the whole world to see it. Absolutely, I agree. Fred said, no way. They have to pledge allegiance to Israel before they run for office. Yeah, according to our sister Cynthia McKinney, it's a whole bunch of pledges that got to be done when they take office. A whole bunch of oaths.
Mhm. Mhm.
Since Azima,
Mhm.
you older than me. Have you ever heard a sitting president say they were displeased with Israel?
Mm-mm. 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 They always walk on a tightrope around them. Always. Even generals. Always. Congress always walks on a tightrope.
Now, when they get out of office, like you've heard the former prime ministers of Israel, when they get out of office, you'll hear them make statements in reference to this is a bad strategic move, so much, so more, so forth and so on. You've heard definitely American generals after they leave office, they may say certain things, but we have never heard a sitting president
Mm-hmm.
or sitting elected official
Mm-hmm.
say they are disappointed with Israel.
Mm-hmm.
And most of you guys heard the retardedness, dumb, uneducated stuff that Ted Cruz said the other day when Tucker Carlson questioned him. He thought that the Israel over there was the Israel that they're talking about in the Bible. Good evening, Sister Star. Jane said, I believe the U.S. wants to control Israel. Well, Israel does serve their interests. They have enough bases over there, but they have enough bases in that region strategically that they don't need Israel.
Mm-hmm.
Now, at the time, they might have needed Israel, Britain and the United States, but they do not need Israel as far as strategic wise with enough bases. They have more than 20 bases in that general area. They might want to control those canals, those rivers, those waters, those straits, because they're strategic for money. They're strategic for commerce. which this is what most of this stuff be about: commerce and having to make money.
Mm-hmm.
Sister Azima, anything else you want to get into in regards to this?
Mm-mm. No,
Why are you smiling?
because
You sent me all this heat from St. Louis is coming from out that way over this way. You sent
yeah,
the fighter jets last week.
I know.
See, you had the fighter jets. I did the 52 fake out with the fighter jets. The two jets went west. That was the decoy jets. And then the other jets came east. Those was the real jets. Ted
And,
Cruz is an idiot, Brother Coop.
and
Ted
this,
Cruz is a bubbling idiot. He needs to get voted out immediately. We need to get APAC away from all our elected officials, and we need to make sure somebody needs to get a bill signed where no elected official should have dual citizenship.
mm-hmm.
Just Google dual citizenship, you'll be surprised.
Mm-hmm. Yes, Lord.
Absolutely, he's the first president that we heard curse like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny that he did it because now he gave them something. Because if you look at the question, the audio was a little shaky, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the first thing they said was he disappointed with Iran.
Mm-hmm. And he
See,
said no.
that's what they call suggestive programming.
Mm-hmm.
They tried to get him to answer the question about Iran first, and he said, "Oh, I'm disappointed with Israel first."
Mm-hmm.
And then he wanted to be upset with Iran, and then he explained about Israel, and then he said, "Look, let's just face it: it's two countries that hate each other, been fighting forever, and they don't know what the f they doing."
Mm-hmm.
Which is if you don't like it or like Trump or don't like Trump,
Mm-hmm.
for a sitting president to say what he said,
Mm-hmm.
I think the posturing, the taking a stance, should let a lot of these countries that consider the United States allies have pause because the American people are behind what he said. I believe.
Mm-hmm. And
But you know, he said,
yeah.
"Oh, since this Azima, you send all this heat this way. It's a heat wave coming across the daggone country."
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the last 3 days, I've been suffering.
Well, let's
First,
send
you
that
do.
heat wave
First,
right
you do it
on
with
over
the
there.
storms. First, you do it with the storms and tornadoes. The
Yeah.
last tornado was last week, last Friday. Actually, Philadelphia got punished, and
Mm.
now it's this heat wave, which we're gonna get a big storm tomorrow night too.
You think so? We're not due for any bad weather until the weekend.
Oh, thank you, appreciate that.
You're welcome. But yeah, I agree with you. I agree with everything that that the audience was saying. I truly agree with that. And yes, I'm happy. I'm happy because a lot of us have what Trump said. A lot of us have always said that about him. That this is just absolutely ridiculous. And if you're really practicing what you're preaching in terms of your religion, you wouldn't even be doing this. That's the sad part. So yeah, it's about time.
And it goes back to, like I said in the beginning of the show, you guys, that as American people, and I know we always say it as Black people, that
Mhm.
we push this needle, that we push the needle, we make the world go round.
Mhm.
But when you're dealing with that Constitution, we force change.
Mhm.
We have to hold our elected officials accountable according to the Constitution.
Yes.
That is the checks and balances.
Mhm.
It's not for them. That's for us. That is a written agreement for us that we can check them.
Mhm.
And what I mean by that is now that American people feel a certain way, same thing with immigration. This is why his approval ratings of immigration is so high, because the American people are tired of
Mhm.
illegals in the country. Not the Democrats. We already know they want them in the country. Not the Republicans. Some of them are indifferent, but the majority of Americans do not want illegals here. The majority of Americans do not want us to be in the conflict. So we have to continue pushing. If you believe in elections and you're right, you should be doing everything possible to force them to do what you want them to do because they work for you. Hold on. I didn't say they need to want to control Israel for commerce. Do you recall what Jared Kushner? Yeah, I know all about Jared Kushner. Well, a lot of times, even if you understand Ukraine, which I have some history about Ukraine, I never talk about publicly, but one of these days I'll do a show in reference to Ukraine. I actually bring a family member on that does business in Ukraine. A lot of these countries, it's about commerce. It's about money. It's about being able to make money hand over fist, getting contracts from the government, and then funnel them to your family members.
Mhm.
Rodney, yeah, absolutely, Rodney. The world saw that Israel was bloodthirsty. Absolutely,
Mhm.
yeah,
Beyond
yeah,
bloodthirsty. Somehow they think they should rule the world,
yeah,
and it's not going to happen. It's not about to
yeah.
happen. But I do have to laugh, we were the ones that sent the planes with the bombs. Came right up out of here.
Yeah, you took very when I called you Saturday, you took a lot of pride in Missouri sending them planes up out of it. The
Because
decoys and the real planes, huh?
right, that's why I took the pride, because the president stated that they needed to know the planes were coming once they hit near your state. Once they hit New Jersey, people know over there that the planes were coming. Not only did they know the planes were coming, but what type of weapons they had on the plane.
When you think about that, you guys, right? And why Sister Azima said that to me on Saturday in reference to the planes. The United States has bases all in that area. They got naval ships all in that area. They got planes where we see where Iran didn't destroy anything. They have fighter jets right in Qatar. Right in Qatar. It's right there. If you ever look at that map, it's right there.
Mhm.
Why would they fly planes all the way from Missouri to go
Mhm.
to Iran?
Right. That's why I was
Because you
laughing.
have to know, you have to let people know
Hmm.
the unspoken secret is that they knew.
Hmm.
They knew. They knew it was happening. So it's very important for us to understand. Money and power.
That's
Absolutely,
true.
Gene.
That's exactly what
So,
it is.
Sister Azima,
Hmm.
we have any final thoughts?
Stay strong, America. I'm all for this.
Um,
They say right
um,
now the revolution is being televised.
my final thoughts and appreciate you guys in the chat is sometimes change happens right before your eyes and you never realize it. That'll be my final thought. With that, appreciate you guys joining us this week. And until next week, you guys stay aware of your surroundings, stay abreast of what's going on, and we'll finish having this chat again next week and maybe some more developments, and we'll go get back into understanding the Constitution, and we'll probably get into, because Juneteenth had just passed, we probably need to get into that, understanding how Juneteenth became a national holiday, understanding why it took so long for those particular slaves to find out that slavery had been abolished in that aspect. Because we need to understand that Juneteenth. I don't know how Sister Azima feels about it, but a lot of times our messaging gets mixed up with the commercialization of these holidays, and you see it, you see it, in what goes on. So, with that, you guys take care. Have a great week.
have you done for me lately? It's Coons. What have y'all done for us lately? And if there's no answer, the only thing we owe them